Cloud. Hello, my name is Robert Hernandez, digital journalism professor at USC Annenberg, and today we're going to learn how to stabilize drone footage or stitch it and stabilize drone footage using a 3D printed rig created by Ben Kreimer, who's going to walk us through his system. Ben, thank you for joining us. Take it away.
Thanks. Okay, so the first thing that I do, and you might laugh at this, is I actually go to AutoPano Video.
The
Because
software still?
yes, the software, because of their to synchronize the two files. I've always liked their motion. Wait, I'm not screen sharing. Sorry.
Not yet, no.
My mistake. Okay, I had it up. Okay, anyway, so first we're going to begin in AutoPano Video Pro. And the reason is because I like their motion sync. Shoot, 1 second. I'm slightly disorganized right now. Let me get this. You'll have to edit this in Premiere. Okay. You see my AutoPano?
Mm-hmm.
Great, okay. So I began this process in AutoPano Video because I like their synchronization features, specifically the motion to sync. And that's all I do. That's all I use this for. But I find it to be really, it gets it right, simple. And so with the drone, I like to find a time close to takeoff. And so then I usually do like a 10 or 15-second search range. But then, yeah, you just use motion to synchronize.
Oh, you use the motion of takeoff to synchronize. Not we shook the camera. We shake the camera.
Yeah, you
and
could use that too.
the...
I don't shake the camera. I mean, there's a lot of jostling when the drone takes off, so that's always good enough.
Oh wow, cool.
And actually, you could probably even, it doesn't even have to be exactly takeoff, but okay. No, actually, this is interesting because it's actually wrong compared to what I had been using before. So I know this is wrong. Why
I
is it
noticed with
wrong?
AutoPano before, there are times where I've done it a couple times and the number is different 3 different times. Like,
Yeah, well, right. So that's why usually what I do is after I do the first, I know this is wrong because I've already done this. And when you do this, you have to, well, you should run it a couple times. Even now I'm sorry, but this is off. Let me check something here. It's funny that I would be doing this live and then it doesn't work, but that's how it works. I wonder why. It should be 9. Should be 9 frames. Let's try a different part.
maybe no offense, but maybe 9 frames was too generous because I don't know how long it took for us to hit record, or if we hit it record.
Well,
Maybe is it more stable if it were at 35 frames off or something? You can hit play and kind of see.
well, I'll show you what I do. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
9 frames. And so then, I would run it until I get the same value, of course. But you don't even have to do that in the sense that what you can then do is just go straight into Mystica, because you're just going to plug these values in and it'll be obvious if things are not right. And so what you do is, I've already opened up a project here. I've got a number of projects that are just set based on basically the resolution that we're working with. And so, of course, I've already done this. I'll load this fresh. Here. Okay, so for the preset, I do have a preset for these cameras. Let's see. Drone. All
Is
right.
that one you gave me before?
Should be.
Okay.
I've only ever had the one.
Okay. I hope I still have that. Trying to
I can
remember
always
how
send
I
it to you.
stitched it. Yeah.
All right, so the first thing I do is by default, and I should probably actually resave the preset so that this doesn't begin in this way, but I change the, well, first I'll change the stitching feather to 0, even with optical flow off. And basically this is to figure out, I mean, this is still the process of getting the sync right between the two clips. And so obviously the frame is flipped. So first I'll flip it. Okay. That value from AutoPano that we got was 9 frames. So I'll enter the 9. And at this point, it becomes pretty obvious if you've got this timing right. Sometimes I will play around a bit, but first, the way that you can tell if the clips are off is by just playing. And as this, you know, very raw stitch wipes up and down, it'll be obvious if something is out of sync, because there will be this kind of mushy lag between the two, like you see here. Or to make it much more noticeable, I'll double the offset almost. So now it's, you know, one clip is kind of really sloppily following the other. And so, uh-oh. Sorry, something happened. You still there?
I am, yeah.
Okay, my screen just flashed. I think I lost Mystica. I don't know why. Oh, geez. One of those days.
Does auto panel still work? I upgraded my operating system, which I don't recommend. But I went to Catalina, um, and so I haven't tried to see if Mystica still works there. I think I have it on my PC.
Sorry, I was distracted. Getting back on track. What was that?
Does the auto panel software still
Oh,
work for you?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like, what have you upgraded your operating system? Or is that a Mac or a PC that you're working
PC,
on?
PC.
Oh, okay.
All right. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I'll quit. I've got a huge amount of RAM allocated to After Effects. I'll reopen that when it's time for After Effects. Anyway, don't know what happened. So quickly back on track. Okay. Okay, so anyway, the offset was 9 frames. Oops. All right. Anyway, so once we're fine with the frame offset, by just kind of nudging the value up a couple frames, just to make sure that what you've got is locked in, and it's very obvious, just based again on the middle seam. Now, in this case, when we look in, I mean, it looks pretty much seamless, at least in terms of how, say, this mountain lines up. There's a bit of offset here between the van or whatever this vehicle is and the structure. So we're happy with the time. Frame offset is 9 frames. Now we'll go to the, there we go, positions, and we'll hit the improve offsets, and that really locked in this problem area right here. And I'll redo that just to show it again, but well, it already took effect. I guess I can't undo it. Oh, here we go. You can see it right here. So with that structure, oops. Usually it takes about a click or 2 of improve offsets, and then sometimes a click of angle, but in this case, I actually don't think we need it. So we'll just run a couple clicks of offset.
So you
And at this,
routinely run offset, improve offsets more than one time? You do it like a couple
usually it's
times?
one, usually it's just one.
And then if you do it a second time, it crunches it, right?
Yeah, it's just too much.
I've done stuff where I improve offsets and then holding control, I separate them and then I bring them back visually and kind of like snap it into place.
Yeah, I've never done that. But if it works, this is always just, yeah, just doing a one click of offset has always done it for me. And at this point, you can begin doing the optical flow application. And this is where you got to start looking for, move this. You'll have to start looking for glitching. So like I see some right here. Whoops. And here.
Can you define glitching? What do you mean by glitching?
Yeah, I'll try to find it again. It's not, it's real subtle there. It's better over here. By glitching, I mean, here, it's not so bad in this case. I'll try to make it real noticeable. It's a sort of,
Oh, is that the pulsating thing from optical flow at times?
it's sort of this these weird artifacts that look like sort of pixels shifting around. Sometimes it's real noticeable. Usually it's not, which is why it's a bit tricky to catch.
How do you
Like
tend
I
to
can,
address those if you see it?
by changing the optical flow settings. So by
Okay, I got you.
increasing iterations and smoothness. There's some, again, it's real subtle here. Like there's some right here. You might not even see it through the screen share, but it's real subtle. And it's just in the optical flow zone. A little bit right there. So anyway, what you do then is once you've isolated the time in the timeline where the glitching is happening, then you can start to adjust the iterations and the smoothness. Now, you can only, if you increase, I mean, you can actually see when you adjust smoothness that you can generate you can create the glitches yourself. As you can see right here, just trees moving around but what this means also is that you can only add so much smoothness before you actually sort of go beyond solving the problem and then you create a new problem. So that value, usually I run between, smoothness is between 10, which is what I've got as the default on this preset, between 10 and 20. Usually seems to be sort of that safe zone where 10, sometimes I get some of the artifacts, and then when I boost that a bit, I can take care of some of them, and then the others, by increasing iterations, it will get rid of them. Like, yeah, I'm still seeing some. There we go, 64 looks good. And what I'm looking for, and I don't know if you can see it, but because it's real subtle on this clip, but you'll see, I mean, you'll literally be able to move you'll be able to move what's in the frame in the artifact zone. You'll be able to move it by adjusting iterations and you can sort of cause the problem by making value changes. So what you want to do, and usually what happens is it's like you'll have a double. You'll have a double of a tree or a double of a building. And so it might be easier. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Like right here, you see the building, how I'm kind of ripping it apart. You guys there?
Yeah, is there a
Just checking.
general
Yes.
safe range for iterations that you use?
No, I don't really I don't really have sort of guideposts like that for iterations, but this is a good example of what you can sort of tune this on. So usually like that, and then so there's still a little in the trees here. You can go kind of mad doing this, but usually you can get it right. And so if there is anything left over, you can't find it.
And is it like whack-a-mole? You fix it here, but you
Not
know, 8
necessarily.
seconds later
Usually
it has
it's
in?
no. Usually you get it once, and
Okay,
then you've
cool.
solved it.
I've never done this step before, so that's great. I mean, I do the range small, extra small, medium, large, and just look for the one that
Yeah.
reduces it the most. But I never thought about going in and like doing iterations and smoothness. So
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's all part of it. I'll go between the three. Usually, smoothness has that range. I find it to be between 10 and 20. Iterations, I haven't really, sometimes I'll do like 150, 160. But then range, again, I never do none. I've never done none. Sometimes I'll do rarely small. Usually it's medium or large. And in which case larger and even larger can cause the problem. So you just got to play with it, and you just kind of, for one problem, there's probably different balances. There's a different balance that you could strike. You could maybe have medium here and then a certain iteration value, or vice versa, flip it. So there's not really one way to do it, I've found. I just kind of play with it until I like what I see, which I do now. So having done that, yeah, I'll watch. And the hard part is with unstabilized footage like this, sometimes you just can't even catch the glitches because there's so much movement happening. Which is why the first thing to do, once you think you've got your clip ready, do consider the color exposure balance between the two. Like with this clip, a lot of times what I'll do if I'm shooting on the ground, I'll do a match color, but I won't do it now because then it blows out the sun. So I usually, if I do any color balancing, which I do with the drone stuff, I don't think I did any with this clip, but I'll just adjust it on the input camera. But I like how it is here. It's a bit dark, but the sky and the ground look good to me. So that's how I exported it. Let's see. At this point, I'll do
anything with
what's that?
do you do anything with the stabilization features in Mystica?
No, I don't touch it. Don't touch
I've
it.
done it a few times to kind of like try to sand it out as much as I can
No.
because I don't really do too much of the other software. So I've done it and it's been decent at times. But if it's overly shaky, I can't do it.
I've never had it work so well for me, which is why I've always gone to After Effects. Or before that, I was using, while using Mystica, I was always doing my stabilization in After Effects. So before the feature was released, before stabilization even existed in Mystica, I mean, obviously I was going to After Effects, but even after they released the feature, having done both, I don't think it does as good of a job for really shaky footage, which tends to come off the drones. And you cannot export stabilized Mystica footage and then try to do more stabilization in After Effects. It will not work, based in my experience. So you have to do one or the other. And I find After Effects is the better of the two. So once you've got it here, I always do a sort of test MP4 export just to watch it in a player, just again to sort of examine the seam again to try to catch any glitching pixels. And once you've done that, and if you catch anything, then make the change. But now at this point, let's assume we're ready to stabilize the footage. So what I do is a ProRes export, and then I use the ProRes HQ and export it. So that's it for Mystica.
So you don't do any of the keyframes to stabilize the horizon at all. You don't mess with it. You just
I'll
stitch
do
it.
that in After Effects, actually.
All okay. All that stuff is in
You
After
could,
Effects.
you could, but I mean, um, yeah, I do that
That's
in
good to
After
know.
Effects. Yeah, I
Cool.
mean, you can do it here, but you'll probably actually want to do it in After Effects too, and I'll show you why. So after you've exported from here, from Mystica, and you're ready, After Effects.
As it loads, how did you find out about using After Effects for stabilization?
I don't remember now. That was like 3 or 4 years ago. I think I just I had been using Blender actually, and I wanted to find another piece of software that might work better. Just I wanted to get better results, and so I did some searching, found out how to do it in After Effects using what was the metal? Was it Skybox Studio? Using the metal product, which got absorbed by Adobe like 2 years ago now. But back when Metal had their own sort of 360 video suite, I used that in conjunction with the After Effects stabilization features. So the files, let's see. So once you've got your file, I'll bring it in. This is one I exported previously. Let's see.
So you do in and out points from Mystica to export that clip that you're gonna use, or do you do?
Oh yeah, I didn't do
So
the
we'll
in
do
and out
that.
points. Yeah, you would do the in and
You
out points. Yeah.
assume that you're not exporting the entire thing.
Oh,
You're
very,
selecting
very
clips.
good point. I should have actually
Yeah.
exported. Yeah, no, when you export for stabilization, in my experience, you really don't want more than 30 seconds of footage. And more than, in addition to that, really what you want is, and I'll look at, I'll pull up a file here. So what I do to figure that, to sort of answer that question of what do I actually want to export, to do the scrubbing, I actually just pull it up in whatever media player you have. It's just faster than Mystica for scrubbing. So an example of a clip that I would spot for using my media player here would be, let's see, like I'll use this one here. So what I'm watching for is a continuous, or for the most part, a continuous drone flight in one direction without any rotation, or rather without any extreme rotation. So for example, if we begin at this point where the drone is hovering over the grass here, it's going to move towards the barn. So, starting a clip here at 2 minutes and 56 seconds, say, I could see, having the clip run like up until it's still moving in a straight direction, and then it stops, and then it starts moving backwards and off to the side. So the most consistent stabilization happens when you have a pretty a movement that's pretty much in one direction. Once you start having, like this kind of slant, that might work. What definitely will not work, based on my experience, is a movement like this. So if you could have a clip where the drone, let's say again, you want to capture the barn, you want to capture the flight over to the barn. It's a straight flight. This is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. Still good. Still good. Still good. And then here, the drone, well, there's some other movements, but the drone will rotate around, and this just would break the stabilization process. It just wouldn't work. So basically your shot then is, whatever this single direction of movement, that's all good. That would work.
So if you were out there filming with a drone, you're thinking about long, consistent brush strokes, if you will, to
Or
provide
hovering in
feel,
one place.
or hovering in one place.
When you really
But hopefully it's
doesn't,
not windy to rock it around.
yeah, I mean, as an example of when the wind really becomes a problem is some of the rocks in this were extreme. Was it really, really, really windy?
Not on the ground, but the wind was picking up. That's why we couldn't
Okay.
light the fire that day.
Got it. Yeah,
It
so
was windy, but not windy enough for us not to fly the drone.
right.
I was looking at this part when I was checking out which part of the video to clip.
Yeah.
And I really thought this part looked great because it was flying out into the valley.
Yeah.
But it was really rocky. So do you think this is usable still?
One of the I shared a couple clips with you, Robert. Two of the forest. One is of this direction, of the drone flying in this direction. It seemed like I had to actually cut the clip. I forget exactly where I did it. I think it might have been actually right around here where the drone is really, there's a pretty extreme tilt that happens, and it seems like I had trouble with that, and the software just lost the track. After Effects just lost the track. If you do have higher resolution footage, I mean, remember, this is, what is it, 2880 per frame. It's not super high resolution. So that's a limiting factor too. If you were running higher resolution cameras capturing the same footage, the software would, based on my experience and using the 5.2, whatever they are, K cameras like the E360 or the Insta360, those cameras are easier. It's easier to stabilize that footage because the resolution is just higher. And so the details are just easier for the software to track. So again, it's really what you're thinking about is how can I help the software have an easy as possible time tracking? And when you have really sudden drastic tilts and movements of the drone, that's where it'll throw it, and it'll just break your stabilization process. So there's that.
So once you exported that into a setting for you, ProRes, you bring that ProRes.
Yeah,
setting.
so once you have your clip that you've exported, it's probably going to be about 30 seconds or less. Bring it into After Effects, and the first thing you do is, which I've already done, you create a composition. And at this point, whoops, I imported a file I had already stabilized. Let's edit. Let's find it. Okay, here we go. We'll do forest. Actually, here we'll do a barn shot. It's barn pass. All right, so once you've exported your clip, drag it into After Effects, create a composition from it. And here, the first thing you'll do is figure out what's the orientation of the drone and the direction that it's flying. So like we were just talking about, you've already kind of planned this out based on how you exported the clip. The drone should have been flying in one direction for the most part, or it's hovering in one place. So if the drone is flying in one direction, now you have to center that direction in the clip here. And so to do that, you'll see the actual, in the composition, the video file down here, and you'll just attach a rotate sphere. And so in this clip, the drone is moving over the barn. So right now, the clip, we need to center the movement in the center of the frame. So it's off center right now. So it's pretty straightforward. But again, you're just helping this will be helping the software when it comes time to find the target track points on the image. So if they're in a single direction, in my experience, you're more likely to succeed in having a successful stabilization track. So once you've centered the movement in the frame, what I do is I try to again sort of maximize the trackable area by adjusting the tilt. Usually, and failed tracks are very common, especially with really wild footage. So with these clips, I did have, I'd say, more trouble than usual getting a successful track out of the clip. And so what I do is I will adjust the tilt so that the frame usually looks something like this. With the frame, it says it's only negative 18 degrees here, but you know, it's kind of, it almost looks like you're taking like a 45-degree look with your eyes down towards the ground in the drone shot. So if you think about it, you're kind of establishing an oblique angle. And the reason is because if you leave, and this will make perfect sense in a moment, there's not a good way to go back and explain this, but if you leave the shot like this, you're going to have a bunch of sky in the shot, which isn't so good for tracking. If you've got sort of an oblique, what would be sort of an oblique angle looking down, when it's time to create the tracker, which you do by going to, I've already got it here, VR Comp Editor in under Window, you'll add a 3D edit. And what happens is when you put the resolution of your, or the width of your clip here, I'm using 3D plugins, and you add a 3D edit, it will crop your frame like so. And so now this area is sort of the crop, or excuse me, the track zone. So all the tracking is going to happen in here. So if I had not tilted the camera down like I did, we would have more sky, which is pretty much useless. Now I also find that if you point the tracker, if you sort of tilt the camera too much, like if you pointed the tilt, if you had the frame, if you had this frame only showing the very bottom, sort of the nadir of the shot, if it was looking straight down at the ground, I don't think I've ever had a successful track with the camera at such a steep angle, looking straight down. So this kind of oblique angle tends to work the best for me. And so once you've done this, you go to Properties, and you'll apply the 3D camera tracker. And it will begin to analyze each frame, finding the track points. And it can take a while depending on your computer. So I think what I'll do, yeah, it's real slow. Usually it's not even this slow, but because we've got Zoom running and I've got some other software running, it's a bit slower than usual. What I can do is I'll pull up a recent forest.
So this effect right now, that is what stabilizing is. It's stabilizing the footage, adding that 3D tracker.
It's tracking the footage, so
it's analyzing it, and then you apply stabilization to it.
Basically, so but let me see if I can pull up the.
I see in the corner there it said like track scene and then stabilize scene.
Right. Yeah. So you first run the tracker, but the tracker has to successfully track from start to finish your clip. And I don't know. I've never kind of. I don't know if I can pull up, because I've never had a reason to do it, these sort of untracked, or excuse me, it's kind of a one-way, in my experience, it's sort of a one-way street in the sense that I don't think I can show, there's probably a way to do it, but I don't know what it is.
But let's just assume like, okay,
So-
you hit that, it analyzes it, it
Assume
tracks
worked.
it.
Yeah, assume that the tracking completed. What will appear is and I shouldn't have quit out to show you this. There will be, this is terrible for a demo. There's underneath where it processed, actually I'll just quickly do it. There's a button that will appear. It's not obvious because it's not there at first, but the button, after you run the analysis, oops. I think we need that. Okay, it's grayed out. Okay, so after you have, sorry, this is a bit convoluted. Okay, so after you've applied the camera tracker and after it has finished, if it does, sometimes it doesn't. So this will complete. This button here is sort of the magic button. And sometimes it doesn't appear. It's grayed out right now. And so if you have a successful track, this will become a clickable button. And what you will see, if this is a clickable button, is a bunch of multicolored points in the frame here, which you cannot see until the camera tracker has successfully done its job. So you'll see a bunch of colored points, which are basically points that the software has identified and tracked. You'll hit create camera. And once you do that, it just takes a second. And then you hit stabilize footage. And again, that takes a second. And then you're done. That's it. So this is the heart of the processing time here. Once you hit stabilized footage, you're then left with the stabilized footage. And what you'll want to do is, let's see. It might not appear. So it'll look like, this is it. Yeah. Yeah, so it'll appear stabilized. The horizon should be virtually, if not completely, steady. That's it.
And then you export or
Yeah,
save,
so then
or
then you export the file, which I use again. If you want, you can adjust, you can rotate in here in After Effects, or you can just rotate in Premiere, because it will be sort of off center in many cases. So it'll probably need a little bit of tweaking with the rotate sphere, not so much like before, but you can do that tweaking here, or I do it in Premiere, but I use the built-in renderer to export, add to render queue. And again, I use ProRes to get it out of here. So I've got it set to, basically it's the same settings as I use in Mystica. It's HQ, but technically it's the 422 HQ. And so then you render, and then that's it. You've got another file stabilized. And yeah.
does
Sorry,
anyone
it's
have any?
not. This is the kind of tutorial that would best be done sort of because of this lag time in between processing. It'd be best just done sort of, not live like that.
This is great. No, this is really great though. It helps out a lot. I now have like a game plan for it. Like you need multiple approaches at times to figure out how to get a piece of footage to be what you want it to be. right? So in the past, I stabilized some stuff with Mystica, but when it's really windy, you know, there's someone who uses Nuke
Yeah.
that does that. Mocha is one that people have talked about, but this is great to use this. Does anyone have questions? All right, so I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you, sir.
But one thing, you don't have to record this.
That's recording now.
Not that it matters. I mean, what the problem still, and I'd have to open up Premiere to show this, is that you can stabilize something like this, as I've done with your forest footage. Whoops, if I can get that. Oh no, I lost my clip. Okay, it doesn't matter. When you stabilize in here, you're not going to be able to correct the lens distortion. So if you think about it, even if you have a flat horizon and the footage, you know, the horizon stays where it should be, these cameras, they still have lenses with significant distortion. I mean, the Kodak cameras have, I think it's 235 degrees of field of view. And so there's still a sort of distortion effect that will exist still in the footage. So even though sort of the horizon will stay on the horizon or whatever's beneath the drone or above the drone can still sort of distort, because that's physics. You know, the physics of the lens captures the distortion of the light as it travels through that fisheye lens, and so that will not go away. And I don't know of a good way to correct that, because that's really beyond, you know, this kind of tracking, if that makes sense. So you can stabilize something, but you'll still have that sort of natural physics result of the distorted light that travels through a fisheye lens, if that makes sense.
I think so, yeah. All right, then I'm going to hit stop. Thank you, sir.